The knock at dawn. The wind was quiet that morning. The sky was still dark when Ethan woke up to the soft sound of knocking. It wasn't loud, just a gentle tap 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 on the metal door of his small farmhouse. He sat up slowly in bed. There was no one nearby for miles. He lived alone on the edge of the Terra 9 colony, far from the busy trade stations. Who would come here before sunrise? He pulled on his old jacket and stepped carefully to the door. Another knock came. Soft. Nervous. Like someone was scared to be heard. Ethan opened the door slowly. No one was there. He looked left and right. The empty plain stretched far into the distance. No sound, no shadows. Just early morning silence. Then he looked down. His breath caught. A small bundle lay at his feet, wrapped in rough cloth, barely moving. It made a weak sound, not quite a cry, but more like a gasp. Trembling. Tiny fingers peeked out from the cloth. Purple. Not human. Ethan knelt down and gently pulled back the edge of the cloth. A baby. Alien. Thin. Shaking. Its skin was pale blue with dark markings along its arms. Its eyes opened slowly, big and full of fear. Ethan's hands froze. He looked around again. "Who left you here?" he whispered. There was no answer. Just a soft breeze moving through the dry grass. He picked the child up carefully. The baby was cold. Very cold. Too cold. It needed help. Ethan carried it inside and placed it on his couch. He turned on the heater and wrapped it in a blanket. He made some warm formula, unsure if the baby could drink it. But to his surprise, the child drank, slowly, weakly, but without resistance. As the baby drank, Ethan noticed something strange. A scent. Not a bad one. Just different. Like wildflowers mixed with metal. And it was fresh. Not from the baby. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside again. He moved in a slow circle around his house, scanning the ground. There, footprints. Light ones. Clawed. Not deep. Someone had walked here recently, and then ran. He followed the tracks for a few meters, but they stopped at the fence. Beyond that was forest. Thick. Dark. Too easy to disappear in. He stood still, listening. Then, a sound. Rustling. Just a small one, maybe 20 feet away. He turned the flashlight towards the noise, but saw nothing. Still, he could feel it. Someone was there watching. He didn't chase. He didn't call out. Whoever it was, they had trusted him enough to leave a child at his door. They had chosen him. He walked back inside. The baby had fallen asleep on the couch, its tiny hands curled up near its chest. Ethan sat down beside it. He didn't know much about alien species, but this one seemed alone, weak, and afraid. "You're not just lost," he said softly. "You were left here, but why? Who would abandon a child like this? And what if they weren't gone? What if they were still nearby, watching, waiting?" He closed the door and locked it, but something in his chest felt heavy. Not fear. Not yet. Just the weight of a question that had no answer. Her scent in the wind. The sun had barely risen. Soft orange light slipped through the dusty windows of Ethan's farmhouse. The baby, still wrapped in warm cloth, slept on the couch, making quiet little sounds with every breath. Ethan sat beside the child, a cup of lukewarm tea in his hands. But he couldn't drink. His eyes kept drifting to the window. Something didn't feel right. He couldn't forget the scent outside. It wasn't just strange. It was fresh. And alive. He had spent years living close to wild alien borders. He knew the smell of fear. And this scent wasn't from the baby. It was from her. Whoever she was. Ethan opened the front door slowly and stepped out onto the cold ground. The footprints were still there, small and light with deep claw tips at the toes. He followed them again to the fence, this time holding a scanner from his old tool shed. Beeps echoed softly from the device. Heat signatures. Nearby. Ethan looked toward the trees. Movement. A quick flash of color between branches. Tall, thin, hunched low. He took a single step forward, then froze. She stepped out, barefoot, skin the same pale blue as the child. Her arms were thin, covered in dirt and small cuts. Her breathing was heavy. She held no weapon, just her hands raised halfway in fear and desperation. Her eyes met his. And in that one moment, Ethan saw everything. She was the baby's mother. Her lips trembled, but she didn't speak. Maybe she couldn't. Or maybe she didn't trust him yet. But her eyes begged him for something. Safety. Forgiveness. Maybe food. Then suddenly, she turned and ran. "Wait," Ethan shouted, but she had already vanished into the trees like a shadow. He stood there, in silence. The scanner in his hand still beeped softly. She wasn't far, but she didn't want to come in. Not yet. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat near the fireplace, the baby resting close to the warm flames. Every few minutes, he looked out the window. Every few minutes, he thought about her. The mother, hiding in the cold, hungry and scared. He couldn't stop thinking. Why leave the baby if she's still nearby? Why knock and then vanish? He got up, opened a food pack, poured some soup into a metal bowl, then stepped outside and placed it near the tree line. No words, no light, just the food and silence. He went back inside and waited. 2 hours passed. Then he heard it. A soft, shaky breath. He looked out the window. The bowl was gone. In the morning, Ethan found the empty bowl near the fence, cleaned. Not even a crumb left. But something else had been placed beside it. A necklace. It was small, made of leather and carved wood shaped like a baby's face. Alien design, old and worn. Ethan held it carefully. This was not a thank you. This was something else. A symbol. A sign. She was watching him. She was judging him. And maybe, just maybe, she was deciding if she could trust him. Later that day, the baby cried more, often. It was hungry, restless. Ethan tried to feed it, but the child refused the human formula now. It needed something else, something he didn't have. He stepped outside again, held up the necklace in one hand. "Please," he whispered to the trees. "I can't help him without you." Nothing moved. Not at first. But then, slowly, a shadow stepped out from the woods. She was trembling, thin. Her knees buckled, her lips were dry and cracked. She hadn't eaten properly in days. Ethan took a step back and opened the door. No words, just a choice. After a long pause, she walked forward. She collapsed inside. Not from fear, from exhaustion. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. She was burning with fever, weak beyond belief. He laid her beside the fire next to her baby. Her hand reached out, touched the child's face, and then her eyes closed. Ethan stared at both of them. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what danger was coming. But one thing was clear. He had just opened his door to something much bigger than a mother and child. He had opened his door to a secret, and secrets always come with a price. The price of kindness. The alien mother slept for hours. Her breathing was rough. Her body shook from cold and weakness. Ethan did what he could. He gave her warm water. He placed heat pads near her spine. And he made sure the baby stayed close, nestled beside her under thick blankets. But even as she slept, she cried in her dreams. Soft whimpers escaped her lips. Sometimes her hands twitched as if she was reaching for something or someone she'd already lost. Ethan sat by the fire, watching both of them. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? What had she run from? And why did she leave her baby at his door, only to return broken and afraid? Suddenly, a soft chirp echoed from the floor. Ethan looked down. The small round device she carried, half broken and dirty, was blinking. It was a translator, old and glitchy, but trying to activate. He picked it up and pressed the center. At first just static, then a voice weak, crackling. Not safe, my kind. They coming. Ethan froze. He stared at the mother. Her eyes were still closed, her body still weak. But her message had been left, a warning. He looked at the baby. Then he looked out the window. By nightfall, she finally woke up. Her lips parted slowly. She tried to sit, but Ethan gently stopped her. She looked at him, confused at first, then saw her child, sleeping peacefully. Single tear rolled down her cheek. Ethan handed her a bowl of broth and the necklace she had left for him. She stared at it, then looked into his eyes. You kept him alive, she whispered, the translator crackling as it hung on her wrist. Thank you. Ethan didn't speak. He simply nodded and waited. She looked down at the fire. My name is Sarah, she said, her voice barely a breath. And my people will kill us all if they find us here. Ethan leaned in. Why? He asked. Sarah's hands curled around the blanket. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a storm. My baby was not supposed to exist, she said. We have rules. Strict ones. Only strong bloodlines are allowed to give birth. Weak ones are erased. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Erased? Sarah nodded. They test every unborn child. If the child is too small, or sick, or carries old bloodlines, they don't let it live. The mother is punished. The child is destroyed. Sometimes they destroy both. Ethan's stomach turned. And you? I ran, she said. I broke the law. I stole medicine. I lied. And when the baby was born, they came for me. She looked away. I couldn't fight them. I couldn't save him, not alone. So I left him at your door. I watched. I waited. If you had rejected him, I would have taken him and run again. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. But you didn't, she added softly. You held him. You fed him. And I knew you were different. Just then, the baby stirred. Sarah lifted him gently, humming a soft, alien tune. The baby responded with a tiny chirp. The warmth between them was deep but fragile. Ethan stepped back toward the window. In the far sky, a shadow passed the moon. A ship, small, fast, flying low. He grabbed his scanner. 3 signals. Incoming. He turned to Sarah. They found you. Sarah stood, almost falling from weakness. But something changed in her eyes. A fire. Then we run. Ethan shook his head. They'll track your biosignature. They're using heat scans. It's only a matter of time. We can't run. Sarah looked down at her child. Her face grew hard. Then you must let me go. Alone. Take care of him. They won't follow if they think I'm dead. But Ethan stepped forward. No. You left your child once to protect him. You won't have to do that again. Not while I'm alive. He walked to his closet, opened an old metal case. Inside, an old military drone, half rusted, but armed. He pulled it out, dusted it off, and checked its battery. I used to be a soldier, he said quietly. I've protected people before. I can do it again. Sarah's voice trembled. They'll burn this place to the ground. Ethan looked at her. Then let them try. Silent enemies, for the first time in years, Ethan felt the weight of war return to his bones. The hum of old tech. The quiet clicks of weapons loading. The soft buzz of motion sensors powering up in the shadows of his quiet home. Night had fallen again, but this time it felt different. The silence was heavy, not peaceful, but waiting. Watching, Sarah sat in the corner with her baby. Her eyes never left the window. Her hand rested on the child's chest as if afraid he might vanish if she looked away. Ethan moved like a ghost through the house. He set traps along the back fence, recalibrated the defense drone he had once sworn never to use again. He turned off all lights and covered the windows in dark cloth. How many will come? He asked quietly. Sarah didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, 3, maybe 4. They come in scouts first. Fast. Deadly. Quiet. They erase problems, before others even notice. Ethan nodded. That gives us one chance. Just before midnight, it began. Ethan saw it through the scanner first. Small heat signatures slipping through the forest line. No sound. No flashing lights. Just figures that didn't belong in the dark. He pressed the silent alarm inside the house. Sarah pulled her child close and kissed his forehead. Ethan positioned the drone outside the back window. 1 target, then 2. They were scanning the land with light beams invisible to the naked eye. They moved like shadows. But Ethan had studied their movement patterns in the war. He recognized the sharp way they paused near corners, the way they avoided metal. Trained killers. Ethan stayed low. The drone clicked softly, waiting for command, but he didn't give it yet. No, not yet. Outside, the scout team reached his fence. A tall one in front raised a thin device. A voice, quiet and flat, came through a translator. Return the fugitive female and the rejected offspring. If you comply, you will be unharmed. Ethan didn't move. The voice repeated the message. Then again. Finally, silence. A second later, they cut the power. Lights in the house flickered and died. The heating system failed. The backup solar batteries dropped. Total blackout. But Ethan had planned for that. Deep in the cellar, an old emergency battery kicked in, and with it, the drone came alive. The moment the first scout stepped through the gate, Ethan hit the switch. The drone spun forward low and fast, firing a single pulse round. A flash of blue energy lit the field. One of the scouts dropped instantly, stunned. The others moved quickly, firing back with silent bolts that scorched the fence. Ethan rolled across the living room floor and grabbed his sidearm. Stay here, he whispered to Sarah. She didn't argue. Not this time. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves twisted in circles as a second scout climbed onto the roof. Ethan heard the thump above and fired once through the ceiling. The shot missed, but the surprise sent the scout crashing down. He ran, outside dodging a sharp plasma burst that seared past his shoulder. The drone circled back, hitting the second scout midair. But the third was already at the back door. They were faster than expected. Too fast. Sarah heard the wood cracking behind her. She turned. A tall, armored figure stood in the hallway, weapon raised. The scout pointed at the child. You will not suffer, he said. The child will die quickly. Sarah's heart stopped. She stepped in front of her baby, her hands empty, her eyes fierce. Then go through me, she said. The scout hesitated. She wasn't supposed to resist. She wasn't trained. She was nothing but a target, a failure, and yet she stood, taller than fear. But before he could decide, a force slammed him from the side. Ethan tackled the scout through the wall. Wood shattered. Dust filled the room. They rolled across the floor in a blur of fists and fire. Ethan reached for his sidearm. The scout kicked it away. They struggled, until Ethan grabbed a broken pipe and drove it into the scout's side. The alien twitched once, then fell still. Silence returned. Smoke filled the house. Sarah held her child close, tears running down her face. Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing hard, bruised but alive. They won't stop, she whispered. Ethan nodded. Then neither will we. But outside, in the distance, another ship descended, larger. This time, not scouts. This time, command was coming. The story she never told, the air was thick with smoke. Ethan sat near the ruined wall, his hands bloody, his chest rising and falling slowly. Beside him lay the alien scout's lifeless body. Across the room, Sarah cradled her child, rocking gently, as tears streamed down her face. The drone sparked and hissed. Half its body had melted in the last fight. It wouldn't survive another round. Outside, the wind changed. It brought with it a sound Ethan hadn't heard in years. Low hum. Heavy. steady, not a scout ship, something bigger. Sarah looked up. Her lips trembled. Her arms tightened around her child. They sent the high enforcer, she whispered. Ethan's face hardened. Who is he? Sarah closed her eyes. He's my brother. Ethan stared in silence. He thought he had misheard. Your brother? Sarah nodded. My blood brother. We were trained together, raised in the same temple, born for the same duty. He rose through command. I fell, her voice cracked. When they found out I was pregnant with a weak child, they gave me two choices: end the pregnancy or face judgment. Ethan didn't interrupt. I ran, she continued. I broke every law, and he swore he would bring me back himself, for the honor of our family. She looked down at her son. But he doesn't understand. He only sees duty. I see life. Ethan stood slowly and looked out the window. A sleek black ship now hovered silently above the field. No noise, no flashing lights. Just dread in the air. A single figure walked down the ramp. Tall. Armored in silver black. Helmeted. His steps were calm. Precise. Not rushed. He wasn't here to talk. Ethan stepped back inside. You need to go, he said. Sarah shook her head. He won't stop. Then we have to hide. He'll find us. Ethan's voice dropped. Then we fight smarter. They moved into the cellar. Hidden deep under the house, it was cold and dark. Ethan activated the last emergency shield on the cellar door. They had maybe 10 minutes. Sarah sat in the corner, her child sleeping on her chest. Ethan crouched in front of her. Tell me everything, he said. Everything you never told anyone. Sarah looked at him, her hands shook, but she spoke. Our kind was built from conquest, she began. We're taught emotions are weakness. Only the strong survive. Only the pure bloodlines are allowed to grow. She touched her son's face. But I served on a medical ship once, far from home. We treated refugees, injured ones. Among them was a human. Ethan blinked. A soldier like you, she said. He wasn't special, not rich, not a leader, but he spoke to me. Not with power, with kindness. She smiled faintly. He treated me like a person. Not a weapon, not a tool. You fell in love? Ethan asked quietly. She nodded. We shared one night. I thought it meant nothing. Until the test weeks later. He doesn't know, Ethan said. No, she whispered. He died saving a colony that wasn't even his. He never knew about the baby. And I ran. Her eyes burned with regret. I ran from my world, and from my guilt. Suddenly the cellar shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. A voice echoed from above. Mechanical. Cold. This is Commander Talek of the High Honor Guard. Surrender the fugitive and the child now, or face judgment. Sarah stood. He knows we're here. Ethan pulled her back. We're not surrendering. Then he'll destroy us both, not if I speak to him first. Sarah looked at him like he was insane. You can't reason with him. He was trained to obey. No feelings. No doubt. Ethan stepped toward the cellar stairs. Then let's see what happens when a human shows him something he was never trained to face. What? She asked. Ethan looked over his shoulder. Mercy. He climbed out of the cellar and walked into the fire. Hunted by the stars. The wind was sharp outside. Ethan stepped through the broken doorway of his farmhouse, slowly, with hands raised. The field was silent. No animals, no voices. Even the leaves stood still like the world was holding its breath. The alien commander stood in the center of the yard, his armor glinting in the pale moonlight. His helmet covered his face, but his presence was heavy. Behind him, the black ship hovered inches above the ground, humming low like a beast waiting to strike. You are the human harboring the fugitive, the voice came from the helmet. Stand. Aside. Ethan didn't move. She came to me for help, he said calmly. She carried a child in her arms, starving, cold, and alone. And I opened my door. The commander tilted his head slightly. You violated neutral ground. You now interfere in internal judgment. You will surrender both, or you will not leave this place alive. Ethan looked him in the eye, or where he assumed his eyes were. You wear armor. But do you know what real strength is? The commander said nothing. Ethan took one slow step forward. Real strength is choosing not to kill when you can. Real strength is letting a child live even when others say it shouldn't. For a long moment there was only silence. Then the commander lifted one hand, and the ship powered its main weapon. From underground, Sarah felt it. The walls of the cellar vibrated. Her child whimpered against her chest. She knew this power. Planet-clearing strength. Her brother would not spare Ethan. He would not spare her. Or the baby. Unless she stopped hiding. She whispered softly into the child's ear, then placed him gently in a heat pod Ethan had built earlier. She stood tall, brushed the dirt from her skin, and walked toward the stairs. Each step echoed like thunder. Outside, the commander raised his weapon. Ethan braced himself, ready to fight, even if it was hopeless. But then, the front door opened, and she stepped out. Sarah, her body still weak, her arms bare, no armor, no weapons, just a mother, walking into the wind. The commander froze. His weapon lowered, just slightly. His voice cracked for the first time. Sister, she nodded once. I won't run anymore. Ethan looked between them, heart pounding. She's not your enemy, he said. The commander turned sharply. You are not part of this. No, Ethan replied, mine, but that child is. Sarah stepped forward. He's your blood, Talek. The commander stepped back as if struck. Impossible. Your nephew, she said. Half human, yes, but real. Alive. And innocent. Talek's hand curled into a fist. You broke every law. You brought shame. I brought life, she said. The ship's weapon began to charge again. A warning light blinked red. This is your final command, Talek said, his voice flat again. Surrender, or be erased. Ethan moved fast. He stepped in front of Sarah, arms outstretched. Then erase me first. Talek's arm trembled. The scanner in his helmet flickered. Heartbeat, calm, human, emotion, unknown. But something inside him broke, or maybe something inside him woke up. He lowered his arm. The ship's weapon dimmed. You would die for her? Talek asked. Ethan nodded. I already chose to. Talek turned to his sister. Go. Leave this world. Never return. Sarah blinked. You're letting us go? I cannot return with shame, he said, but I also cannot kill family. Not this time. He tapped his chest. They will come. Others, stronger than me. They will not hesitate. Ethan stepped beside Sarah. Then we'll be ready. The black ship rose slowly into the sky. No explosions, no more threats, just one last look from a brother who had spent his life obeying, and in one moment chose to disobey. To save a child. As the stars swallowed the ship, Ethan turned to Sarah. She looked at him with eyes full of light and fear. You stood between death and me, she whispered. You stood between death and your child, he said. We're not so different, but none of them knew. That far above, in a dark command ship orbiting the colony, a council had already seen everything. And now, Earth had their attention. They called it weakness, he called it family. Days passed. The winds over Terra 9 calmed. The smoke cleared. The broken walls of Ethan's farmhouse still stood, but scars ran through the earth. Silent proof of what had happened. Inside, life continued. Sarah's baby laughed for the first time. Small, soft, full of life. Ethan smiled as he watched them from the window, holding a hot drink in his hands. He had rebuilt the power grid with old solar cells. The heat was working again. The fire burned gently in the hearth. For now, there was peace. But Ethan knew peace never lasted long in a galaxy ruled by fear. High above them, on a hidden warship orbiting the colony, the Council of Purifiers gathered in a dark chamber. Dozens of red eyes glowed around a curved table. They had watched the scout footage. They had seen Talik disobey his final command. They had seen the human speak. Not with weapons, but with choice. And that choice spread like fire through the ranks. He should have executed them both, one said. Instead, he fell to human emotion. Another growled. What is the name of this human? A third voice asked. A silent officer pulled up the scan logs. His name is Ethan Cale. Farmer. Ex-military. Unremarkable. The council leaned in. But he did something no warrior dared to do. One voice whispered. He made us doubt the purity law. Back on Terra 9, Ethan was fixing the broken fence when a shadow passed overhead. A courier drone landed beside him, dust flying. It blinked blue. Message for Ethan Cale. Ethan wiped his hands and opened the message. Galactic Protectorate request. Human citizen Ethan Cale is summoned to speak before the Grand Alliance on matters of interspecies protection. He blinked. Sarah stepped outside with the baby in her arms. What is it? She asked. Ethan turned the tablet toward her. They want me to speak. About what? About why I didn't let them die. The next day, he stood on a platform on a starship filled with delegates, humans, aliens, diplomats, scientists, even enemies. Sarah watched from the side, holding her child close, wrapped in a simple blue shawl. Ethan looked at the crowd, then spoke. When she came to my door, he said, she didn't speak my language. She didn't offer gifts. She didn't come with power. Just a baby, too weak to survive alone. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. But most listened. Your laws said that child should die. My heart said he should live. He paused. You called it weakness. I call it family. He cried like any baby. Needed warmth, needed care. And she, his mother, risked her life, not for power or war or pride, but for love. He pointed to the child. Tell me, if that kind of love is weakness, then what is your strength worth? The chamber fell into silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then a slow clap echoed through the chamber. It began with one, then two, then dozens. Not everyone agreed, but many had felt something they hadn't in years. Hope. Months passed. Sarah and her baby were granted protected status by the Alliance. Her child, now named Ellen, was the first officially recognized half-human, half-alien born under protection law. Ethan's farm became a safe house, a place where fugitives, forgotten mothers and rejected children came seeking shelter, not for war, but for a second chance, and far away, on the same world that once ordered their death. A statue now stands. It shows a human kneeling with open arms, a baby in one arm, and beside him, an alien mother holding his hand. The plaque below reads, He opened his door and changed the fate of two worlds.